Your family's land is ours now, she smirked, standing beside a rusted locomotive that blocked the only road to my grandmother's property. The massive train had appeared overnight, perfectly positioned to choke my access. HOA President Karen Whitaker waved a boundary map in my face. "This is Maple Grove territory," she declared, her voice thick with smug authority. If only she knew that her weapon of choice held a secret my grandmother buried decades ago. A secret that would unravel her precious HOA with one forgotten signature. Where are you reading from? Drop a comment and share if you've ever faced an HOA nightmare like this. I never imagined I'd be fighting for a 5-acre plot my family had owned since the 1950s. Tucked just outside the growing Maple Grove subdivision, the land was a slice of countryside with towering pines and a creek winding through it. My grandmother, a retired railroad clerk, left it to me 2 years ago after I lost my partner in a car accident. I needed a fresh start, and this land was more than dirt. It was her legacy, a place to build my dream home and honor her memory. For months, I cleared brush, staked out foundations, and poured thousands into architectural plans and county permits. Trouble hit on a chilly fall morning. An envelope marked "Notice of Violation" in red ink waited in my mailbox. The Maple Grove HOA demanded I halt all construction on their property. I was baffled me land wasn't part of any HOA. I triple-checked the deed before starting. The next day, I drove to the property and froze. A hulking, abandoned train blocked the access road, its rusted frame stretching 100 yards, faded red paint hinting at its past with the Northern Star Railroad. I recognized it as an EMD FP7, the kind my grandmother once managed records for. Karen Whitaker, HOA president, stood by the train, a woman in her late 50s with a sharp bob and a permanent scowl. Beside her was Robert Langley, a retired attorney and HOA board member. "Ms. Harper," Karen said with a fake smile, "you've seen our notice. This land falls within Maple Grove's boundaries per our county-approved map." She unfurled a map highlighting my property as a community green space. Robert chimed in. "Construction requires HOA approval, which you don't have. You're accruing $200 daily fines until this is resolved." His eyes darted away, fingers twitching on his briefcase yet tell he wasn't fully confident. I showed them my deed, but Karen dismissed it as outdated. "Maple Grove has standards," she said, gesturing at the pristine subdivision. "We can't allow road construction to ruin our aesthetic." Furious but determined, I left. This land was my grandmother's pride. I wasn't surrendering it. That night, I called Clara Thompson, my grandmother's old railroad colleague. At 68, Clara's memory was sharp. When I mentioned the train, she gasped. "That's engine 512, your grandmother's old record keeper. They're using her train." She frowned at the map's details. "That's a doctored 1987 survey, never state approved. They tried this 15 years ago with the Miller Farm, same playbook." Leaning closer, she added, "Your grandmother was cunning. She knew developers might come for that land. She left protections." Clara handed me a worn key tagged Northern Star Archives, Section 6, and a faded map. "This opens the railroad storage. What you need is inside." At home, I pored over my grandmother's papers. A 1954 land deal mentioned right-of-way assignments and permanent easements tied to the tracks along my property. The jargon was dense, but a photo showed my grandmother beside engine 512, her hand on its side, pines in the background smaller then, but the same one standing today. I recalled walking the tracks with her at 10. "This isn't just land, Lily," she'd said. "It's power. Hold it tight." Clara's words echoed. She told me, "If anyone messes with my granddaughter, tell her to check the contract. It guards more than land, it guards freedom." Among the papers, a folder labeled Development Conditions held a 1954 lease for Maple Grove's land, with a clause, "Perpetual track ownership remains with grantor, unaffected by future development." My grandmother hadn't just left me land, she'd left a legal landmine Karen couldn't foresee. Maple Grove was a 350-home subdivision, 20 years old but obsessed with prestige. Uniform lawns, identical mailboxes, and wreaths hung at exact heights screamed control. I parked near the community center, introducing myself as the trackside property owner. Most residents were polite but clammed up about the HOA. Then I met Sophie and Gwen. a 40-year-old reporter snapping photos of the bulletin board. Overhearing my story, she said, "The train blockade?" I wanted to cover it, but Karen threatened to sue my paper. At a diner, Sophie shared tales of Karen's tyranny. Fines for wrong flower pot colors, harassment over visible toys, rule changes without votes. Last year, a veteran was fined $600 for an unapproved flagpole, she said. When he refused, they leaned his house. He fought for our country but couldn't fly his flag. Sophie's laptop revealed years of HOA complaints, redacted minutes, and rising administrative fees. A spreadsheet tracked property grabs for owners before me lost land to sudden HOA territory claims. My plot was flagged railroad project. Sophie paused. Karen's dad lost their ranch to a developer when she was 16. She vowed never to be powerless again. Now she hoards land like armor. It explained Karen's obsession but didn't excuse her bullying. The next day, an unsigned HOA purchase offer arrived 40% below market value, with a note. "This clears your fines." Fine print allowed immediate HOA access and barred me from discussing terms. I called Robert to decline, but he sneered, "You're outmatched. We're ready for a long fight, are you?" His tone dripped with menace. An elderly neighbor, Mr. Evans, beckoned me over, whispering, "There used to be no building signs on that track years ago, before they redrew the maps." His glance at nearby windows showed his fear. Digging deeper, I learned Karen targeted opponents with fines while ignoring allies' violations. One resident's pond was forced filled, yet a board member's identical pond stood untouched. Sophie found Maple Grove had expanded its boundaries thrice in 10 years, each time skirting legal process. The latest grab included my access road. A new notice upped my fines to $200 daily, retroactive, totaling $18,000. "They're drowning you in debt," Sophie warned. "It's how they force sales." Clara called, excited. Engine 512, your grandmother hid a compartment in it in '66 for sensitive railroad records. It's behind a panel with her initials. I remembered her showing me secret train nooks as a kid. If she left something, it's there. That night, I spread out surveys, photos, and zoning records. This wasn't just my fight, it was for the veteran, the grandma fined for roses, the family whose kid's hoop was too tall. The train wasn't a barrier anymore. It was my weapon. At 5 a.m., I headed to the county archives with Clara. Her old railroad badge got us into the records room. A man in a suit, later ID'd as Karen's nephew, Greg Walsh, a realtor, pretended to read a paper but watched us. "Section 6, Cabinet 10, Clara said, moving fast. "We found a 1954 contract confirming my family owned the tracks outright, plus a ledger showing Maple Grove's land was leased from the railroad, with my grandmother's terms. She was the railroad's clerk," Clara explained. "She crafted this to protect her heirs." Footsteps neared. We hid the files and left. Greg was on his phone, likely tipping off Karen. I met Emily Carter, a property dispute lawyer eager to challenge Karen. "I've had clients crushed by her," she said. Reviewing the contract, she grinned. "Your family owns the tracks, and Maple Grove's HOA is a tenant on your land. This clause could void their lease if they infringe on your track rights." That afternoon, 2 security guards and new locks blocked my property. One shoved me as I tried to pass, the other filming only my reaction. Sophie called later, frantic. "They're posting edited video claiming you attacked the guard." They filed a police report. But Mrs. Chun, a retired librarian, had recorded the truth, live streaming the guard's aggression. The community split. Karen's allies vilified me, but others questioned her tactics. My contractor quit after his family was threatened. "They named my kids' schools," he said. 2 others followed, citing similar intimidation. Robert filed false IRS claims, triggering an audit. "They make fighting unbearable," Emily said. Legal bills piled up beside a new HOA notice charging me for security costs due to aggression. Doubts crept in, but a photo of my grandmother by the train, pointing to its side, reignited my resolve. I had to check that compartment. I sent the HOA a formal letter, citing my track ownership and demanding the train's removal and fine cessation within 72 hours, or I'd pursue legal action. Emily ensured the language screamed authority with tabbed evidence. I hand-delivered copies to board members. Most looked confused. Karen's face flushed crimson as she slammed her door. The HOA retaliated, cutting my property's power, claiming safety issues from my unauthorized work. The vote violated their bylaws' 48-hour notice rule. My electrician was stumped. I've never seen a service blocked like this. Robert also contacted my bank, questioning my land's title with doctored violation notices. My construction loan froze. They're starving you out, Emily said. We'll file for an emergency hearing and damages for loan interference. Sophie connected me with bullied residents. At a cafe, we shared stories. Tom Rivera, a former board member, gave me a flash drive of emails showing Karen's property grab strategy. She runs it like a fiefdom, he said. I questioned her, and suddenly my shed fine for years got violation notices. The drive revealed a $1.2 million reserve fund and a deal with Elite Estates developers for a railroad heritage park on my land, promising 25% property value boosts. Karen's house, next to the site, would profit most. If she failed, she faced six-figure penalties. This was about money and survival. Emily drafted a 45-page lawsuit against the HOA, Karen, and the developer for conspiracy, harassment, and defamation. This is war, she warned. Karen will fight dirty. The night before filing, a newspaper ad announced the Maple Grove Railroad Park on my land, with renderings of Engine 512 as its centerpiece. A permit application, filed days earlier, claimed ownership disputes were resolved. They're banking on bureaucracy and connections, Emily fumed. Exhausted, with my savings drained and reputation battered, I drafted a letter accepting their lowball offer. But my grandmother's voice stopped me. This is power. I tore it up. Their permit mistake sent to me. The owner was my opening. At midnight, I sneaked to the train, avoiding the dozing guard. In moonlight, I found a panel with my grandmother's initials. It opened to a waterproof box. Inside were the 1954 track deed and a lease clause. If track rights are infringed, the grantor may terminate the lease with notice. I escaped as the guard's flashlight swept by. Emily reviewed the clause. This could dissolve the HOA. They've blocked your tracks grounds for termination. Sophie called. Karen knows about the clause. Emails show she and Robert hid it. They're inspecting the train today to destroy evidence. I arrived as HOA workers surrounded Engine 512. Snapping photos, I spooked them. Robert appeared, rattled. This is HOA property. Leave. I stood firm. These tracks are mine, and I have proof. His smile was cold. Stubborn people find trouble. Slipping on gravel, I sprained my wrist. Robert watched, smirking, as I limped away. I had the evidence. Now I needed the stage. The HOA's quarterly meeting was packed, buzzing about the railroad park. Karen, confident, pitched it with glossy slides. I waited, hidden, until she hit the agenda item. With Emily and Clara, I strode to the podium, laptop ready. Karen's smile froze. This is for residents, she snapped. Ignoring her, I projected my evidence, original versus doctored maps, guard footage, and Karen's emails hiding the clause. This land and tracks are mine, I said. The HOA's trespassing. Murmurs grew as I revealed the clause to dissolve the HOA. Robert shouted, fabricated, but Sophie's live stream to the community forum amplified the truth. Residents demanded answers. Emily outlined the HOA's crimes: fraud, illegal permits, misrepresentation. Karen snapped. So what if it's not ours? Without that land, we lose everything. Her raw panic tied to her childhood loss silenced the room. Phones captured it all. Mr. Evans stood, 30 years here, and I trusted this HOA. Not anymore. Signs sprouted. No more lies. Robert offered double market value during a break. Take it, and this ends. I refused. I want justice. 3 days later, a special meeting drew news vans. Residents shared years of abuse. I demanded an apology, refunded fines, and board resignations, offering to spare individual lawsuits. Karen refused. We'll fight for years. Emily presented the clause termination notice. At a county hearing, the commissioner ruled the HOA's lease is terminated. It's no longer a legal entity. The decision rocked the real estate world. HOAs weren't untouchable. By Engine 512, with Clara, Emily, and neighbors watching, I signed the termination with my grandmother's fountain pen. One signature, Emily said. One legacy. I replied, touching the train's steel. Her voice echoed. Never let them take what's yours. I kept a track tie for my future home's door, a reminder of her fight, not mine. Maple Grove formed a transparent association with limited powers. Engine 512 became a museum centerpiece, its plaque reading, "Where justice rolled forward." I began building my home, weaving in railroad motifs. Karen faced lawsuits and moved away. Robert fled to Arizona, his career tarnished. Sophie's article, "How a Clerk's Granddaughter Derailed an HOA," won awards. Clara restored the train's compartment, occasionally driving it along preserved tracks. At a picnic on my grandmother's 100th birthday, a new resident asked, "Regret dissolving the HOA?" I saw neighbors laughing, kids playing, gardens blooming freely. "No," I said. "It fell because they picked the wrong fight." Her legacy wasn't just land, it was standing firm for those who'd follow. Engine 512, once a barrier, now greets me home, proof that justice, with persistence, can't be derailed.